I'm Alma, they, them, and I'm running to be your next VP community. I'm an international and queer student, and Edinburgh has really become my home, also with my chosen family being here. So I really want to work towards making youth and the university as good as it can be for students and supporting students. Um, I have a lot of experience in campaigning nationally with Amnesty International UK, for whom I was a student representative for a whole year, as well as at the university, where recently I've led a workshop on trans awareness and inclusion for HCA staff and students, amongst other things. As you can probably see, I'm not currently in Edinburgh. That is because I am on the Isle of Harris practicing immersion and Gaelic. And as a student of linguistics and Gaelic, that is another thing that's very important to me, supporting the Gaelic language, additionally to addressing how the cost of living crisis is affecting students.
Sure. Hi, my name is Chen Ming. I'm a fourth year economics and statistics student, and I'm from Nanjing, a historic city of China. But after 4 years studying at the University of Edinburgh, I feel myself a bit Scottish now. And this time, I'm running to be your vice president community for the next academic year. And over the last 4 years, I took several roles at campus, including volunteer, economics academic land president, and a global body society co-chair, economics and statistics program representative to improve the well-being of our community in different areas. So as a vice president community, I would like to continue to serve our community and try my best to make a positive change on it.
Hi, my name is Jerry Lee. I'm a fourth year sociology and politics student. I'm running to be your next VP community.
Hi, my name is Maciek, and I'm running to be your next Vice President Community this year. You might have seen me in town playing the guitar, or you might have seen me in Pleasant Cafe making coffees for you. I would love to be your next Vice President Community to carry on my experiences and my ideas that I've gathered throughout the last 2 years of working in the community. As a president of Polish Society, for the last 2 years, I've worked closely with the university, with the Students' Association, with the local government, the council, etc., all you can imagine, to make sure that people from my country are feeling welcome and are supported in this community. I would love to carry on this experience to make sure that every single member of our university community, both from Scotland, England, Ireland, Europe, America, everywhere in the world, that they all feel welcome here in their second home, that is Edinburgh.
How you doing? I'm Sam, and I'm running for Vice President of Community. And just a bit of background about me, I'm third year at Edinburgh studying cognitive science, which is super interesting. It's kind of a blend of different disciplines. It's like a bit of psychology, a bit of computer science. So I've got a background of talking to kind of different people from different backgrounds, which is really interesting. And yeah, I'm loving Edinburgh. Took a gap year before Edinburgh, which is super classic. And do a bunch of sports clubs. So I do a bit of boxing, bit of hockey. I'm currently running a podcast, which is really interesting. Get to talk to some kind of interesting people about interesting topics. So yeah, that's pretty much me. I'm quite sporty, but I love a cheeky night in, and love a little boogie sesh when it comes down to it. But yeah, that's me.
Hello, I'm Theo. I use he, they pronouns, and I'm starting to be your VP community to tackle injustice. I'm really passionate about this, and I've got lots of experience campaigning with grassroots and bigger groups outside of the university, and I'd really like the opportunity to bring that to the student experience, to really fight on your behalf to improve our community, both within the university and with the broader city. And it's by coming together to build that collective power that we're really going to achieve the changes that we need to see. I've got experience campaigning on transport and active travel, on housing with Living Rent, and which is Scotland's tenants union, and I've got experience organising environmental activities, so I'd really like the opportunity to create opportunities for positive environmental action for all of you. I've got a diverse professional experience working in renewable energy, so I'm very good at tackling all sorts of different problems, so I bring that to the table, and I'd love to be your VP community, so vote for me.
one of the things that I think is most important is that housing should be for students and not for profit. So that means rent caps on university managed accommodation and keeping costs as low as possible in order to support the students instead of trying to make a profit. What that means for USA is lobbying the university in this regard. As well as seeing if possibly there's a possibility of opening a financial fund for hardship relating to housing specifically, especially for students who are having legal issues with landlords and are in financial hardship trying to deal with that issue. So basically supporting students in any way they can, possibly expanding the advice place on that part and how they can help with student housing issues, as well as having a very easily available flyers on information on what your rights are and how you can deal with things, because information on the advice place at the moment is a bit hard to seep through and is a bit, it can be made easier to quickly take a flyer and figure that out. As well as empowering workshops for how to deal with landlords and other issues that might come up around this.
As we all know, renting issue is widely known and super serious at our community. So I was one of the students who is struggling to find a place to live last semester, changing several places in a short term and viewing all the time, but with rejection in the end. So I totally understand how frustrating this process is, and I know there are lots of students are experiencing the same question, the same issue every year. As a result, that's why I decided to stand in this role and make my mind to change this situation. So as a vice president community, I will closely work with university wellbeing team and the Scottish government to strive to find a way effectively solving this issue. For example, I would cooperate with renting agents of campus accommodation or local residents who are willing to rent their flats. And I would also make videos or hold sessions to give students renting tips, such as tenant threats, ways to find a flat, prevent a scam, etc. after they move out from guaranteed student accommodation.
Edinburgh's housing crisis is leaving a lot of students homeless, in economic hardship, and vulnerable to scammers. I think as VP community, I will first work with local authorities to address the high rent prices and the shortage of housing, and ask the uni to put a rent cap on the student halls that university have. A lot of the students are vulnerable to scammers because of a language barrier, because they're international students and they don't have a guarantor within the UK. So I think it's important the university needs to keep expanding the university guarantor scheme so that more students could benefit from this amazing scheme that we have. And lastly, I think USA needs to publicize more to the students what tenancy rights they have. And it is the VP community's job to do that.
So I believe that the solution to the current housing crisis in Edinburgh, that's particularly touching the students, requires three parts. First of all, we should make sure that the students are aware of their rights as tenants, of the threats to their endeavor to find a flat, for example, scammers or illegitimate renting companies, and that they know there is a wide range of support available to them from the university and from USA. Second part, I believe that we should hold the university more accountable for what they're doing with students. For example, we should expect them to accept numbers of students that they can manage. We should expect them to strive to provide better and more accommodation for all students. And I believe that with the wide range of support systems that the university has, I believe that it should be the case that students can seek financial support from more sources of funding at the university so that they can afford to stay in the flat. And last but not least, the third part is we as USA have a pretty big leverage and lobbying power. So we should seek to have the council and the government help the students, be able to rent flats and rent accommodation by both building more, supporting rent freezes, by supporting better rights as well, and expanding on tenant rights.
Okay, so in terms of tackling the housing crisis, I've had a few friends who came to uni this year and have had flats in previous years and have had no problem getting flats in previous years, and have had to stay in Pollock residence for quite a few months, which has been super difficult. But I also hear of people who come to the uni and don't even have anywhere to stay, let alone Pollock residence and stuff. So I think if I was in the role, I would definitely prepare some kind of accommodation in the summer before students get to uni, so that they don't actually turn up and come to USA and think, potentially from internationally as well, and come here and not have a place to stay, which is extremely kind of, I imagine, super stressful. So I'd definitely get some sort of system in place for that. I think I'd also potentially even start a scheme whereby people who already have flats and potentially have spare rooms in flats can kind of join some kind of app to potentially hook people up who don't have a flat with people who have spare rooms. Some kind of, I'm sure there's already apps out there, but some kind of university thing. I think that'd be fantastic. But just reassure people that there will be a place to stay, and confidence down.
The student housing crisis is no new thing. It's been going on for years and years and years, and it's not getting any better, and things really need to change. I recently spoke at the Scottish Parliament around the cost of living and student housing crises, so I'm very aware of all of the problems that we face as students. As students with precarious living conditions where we have to move places from year to year, it's so much harder for us to have somewhere reliable to live. So there's loads of work to be done there. Around securing tenancies, around a move away from privately owned, purpose-built student accommodation, where students have less rights than they would in a private rented tenancy, and all sorts of other things. And through my work with Living Rent, I'm really involved with this, and I'm up to date on lots of the housing policy discussions and campaigns, so I can bring that to the forefront of my role doing as VP Community. I think one of the main things that I've heard and experienced through myself and my friends having really precarious living situations is just how racist and xenophobic the housing system is in Scotland, whether it's a guarantor deposit scheme, meaning that international students have to cough up 6 months of rent in advance, or just scrabbling around in September once the fringe is over to try and find somewhere to live when you haven't been in the country. It's incredibly difficult. So there's lots of work to be done on student housing. I'm really passionate about it. I've got experience in it. And I'd really like the opportunity to deliver on student housing on your behalf.
I think it is very important for USA and the university in general, but especially USA, to use the resources already available in the student community, and especially in regards to students who are already active on issues like the campaigning on the climate crisis, and really lobbying the university in regards to, for example, investment in fossil fuel companies and things like that. So really taking the supportive role in students who already basically know what the issues are and where to go and what to work on, and also using power and influence, especially like financial one, for USA, and also lobbying the university to do the same, to listen to students and use that power for the good of the climate and communities in general, and also the student community. So I think USA's role should be a very supporting one, that allows students to really push forward the issues that they're already seeing. One of the things that I find important is the university should move away from Amazon Web Services, not supporting a very unethical but also bad for the climate business, even with like internet services and web services in general.
So as a vice president community, I'm keen to help the students to advertise and support their events and activities. And for example, if it is possible, I would like to make videos or host speeches or like send emails to students to advertise their ideas. And I think this is also the main point of our user, like sustainability. And besides, I would focus on not only like our main university, main campus, but also like more about social responsibility and sustainability in other areas. For example, I would further push for what our previous vice president communities plan, like holding events like swap shops to help students reuse clothing, household items, and textbooks. And moreover, I would work closely with various like organizations to create more volunteering opportunities, such as local school or remote and poor area teaching tutor, or even the care home volunteer, etc. And I think through these ways, most students can improve their sense of responsibility in the society and also could make contributions to the society.
As a body that represents students, I think it's very important for USA to be environmentally sustainable, and while also empowering the voices of the student activists who also work tirelessly on this issue. I think USA should be an organization, and this is mostly VP Community's remit, to create a space and opportunities to consolidate the efforts that various student groups have been doing and have been organizing. And I also think it's very important for USA to respect existing student efforts, such as the Hardy Squirrels Food Co-op, instead of creating something that would have essentially occupied the same space that they were. USA should just empower these existing efforts, and because they've been there, they know better than some new scheme USA could come up with. And it's important that USA supports these efforts.
So, in my opinion, USA has a social responsibility of being a voice to their students, which is fairly obvious, but also it should carry a certain range of responsibility on their side. So, if many students find it to be very important to them that their university, and not only obviously, adheres to the principles of social and climate justice, it is USA's duty to support that. We can do it again by three things: by supporting the already existing movement of students who have a very large amount of momentum and support their drive to change. USA should themselves strive to be more sustainable and more green in their practices, at their venues, at cafes, at bars, at buildings, etc. Because they are absolutely clearly nowhere being carbon neutral at this point, as well as, again, using their power as a body on the governmental scene even. We should strive to connect with other universities and associations so that we can, as wider universities group of universities, we can strive to make the higher education sector even more and more green and sustainable. I do believe that by introducing practices such as eliminating plastic or non-sustainable energy sources in USA's venues, we can make it so that our carbon footprint will be significantly reduced, as well as we can support the students who are already fighting for that to happen.
So, in terms of how the Student Association would kind of support activists and local university activists, I think it's difficult. I think definitely what the Student Association can do is just provide a good base for people who want to voice opinions and stage protests and things. So I think potentially providing good facilities and providing good rooms for protests and things like that. And I think a bigger thing is even providing a connection with those at the top of the university. I think with a lot of kind of marches and stuff like that, there seems to be definitely a separation between the management of the university and the actual march itself, and kind of campaigns and the people who are actually running the university, which doesn't make it seem as if there's a lot of support from the uni. So I think a bit of presence from higher up staff would be fantastic. And yeah, just basically helping them out however you can. I think organising a campaign is a very stressful thing. Just providing support, and yeah, just any help they can possibly do.
I'm sure I don't need to speak to you about the prevalence or magnitude of the climate crisis. I'm in my 5th year of chemical physics, and this year I'm spending my whole time on a research project looking at the physical impacts of the climate crisis in the Arctic. So I'm horrendously aware of the impact that has both on us mentally and physically, in terms of our health here in Edinburgh or in our home countries, or just generally in the way that we experience the everyday lived world. I'm really passionate about climate. I think it's very difficult as individuals to have a big say on it, but the way that we need to do that is to build collective power. So I'd love to work with all of the different student activist groups and more broadly groups in society to come together to have some really well planned out, thought out campaigns to really challenge the university to become more sustainable, including retrofitting housing that the university owns. And also one thing I'm also really passionate about is to manage our climate anxieties, is to organise trips with rewilding groups so that we can do some small positive actions. As a collective we can really build up that power in that community, and that can really help us take positive steps to addressing the problems that humanity faces, whilst also being aware that other people in the world, especially in the global south, are going to bear the brunt of this and fighting for climate justice at the same time.
Accessing healthcare is incredibly important. So the university and USA should do as much as possible in order to support students with that. Finding a GP or a dentist in Edinburgh that actually takes you, it took ages for me as well. And that really shouldn't be the case, especially if you need a prescription renewed or anything like that. So I think that the first order of business would be for USA, which has much more resources than individual students, also dealing with academics and other things, reaching out to GPs across Edinburgh and maybe creating a list to then make it easier for students to find GPs that actually do take patients. And if that doesn't work because there really are not enough spaces, we should look into expanding the university health service and maybe getting more GPs and dentists as well for that, so students can access it easily. This is something that is so important, especially if you're needing a GP and then have to go out additionally to maybe working and also doing your uni work, trying to find a GP because even if you're already sick, and then that is a whole charade that never should happen for students, and USA should do everything in its power to support students with finding GPs, especially international students. It was a whole mess as an international student trying to figure out how it even works, the system in the UK. So yes, that's how I would tackle that.
We could cooperate with local hospitals to say if we could have a contract or cooperation to give students a way to register and give them a way to get access to the service. And on the other hand, I think we could find the sources, for example, which websites, which hospitals are willing to give the service to the students, and we could just make a list and send the email or hold the sessions or speeches to students to let them know. Because in many cases, it's not there are no GP or no hospital are willing to give the service to students, or students are rejected by them. It's students don't know which hospitals are willing to give service. So I think what we can do is give the full information to both the hospital and the students. So we can do that. For example, we can give the list on our student society website, and also send the emails to students to let them know. So I think these are the main two main points that we could give to the students and solve this issue to some extent.
It's important for USA to support the students in all aspects of their lives, and I think for healthcare it is absolutely also one of them. USA should create ways through advice plays, through their website, through social media to better inform the students of their options of GPs. There are 72 GPs within the city of Edinburgh alone, and if it's more accessible to these students, especially for international students who aren't as savvy about how NHS operates, it would create easier time for them to look for the GPs. And also I think it's important for the BP community to work with local health boards, NHS Lothian, or even NHS Scotland as a whole. We are in the nation's capital, to create a better environment for students who are seeking healthcare.
So I believe that the solution to the healthcare problem among students is also very important, because I myself have struggled with finding a GP for over a year when I came here to Edinburgh for the first time. And that was also peak COVID, so healthcare was an incredibly important but also scarce resource at the time. I believe there's several ways to approach this problem. For example, we could help the students with their means of transportation, make it more affordable, make it more accessible, so that they can travel to GP practices outside of the very central area around which most of the student life is focused. I believe that the university can also use their leveraging power to liaise with practices so that they are willing to accept more students. And I also believe that this issue is disproportionately affecting international students. Many of them, me included, have struggled with registering for a GP because the way we do that in our home countries is vastly different. I still cannot quite get used to what we're doing here when it comes to signing up for GP or accessing healthcare in general. So I do believe that encouraging students to seek, for example, the appropriate healthcare that they require at a point. So is it A&E, or is it non-emergency, or is it GP, or is it just a pharmacist that can help them? I do believe that by sorting this out, we could help all students access healthcare to the point that they require.
Yeah, so in terms of if students are having difficulty accessing basic healthcare and more advanced healthcare, I think definitely there should be, I mean, I would have thought that the Bristow Square GP provides sufficient healthcare, but if it doesn't, I think there'd definitely be a case for outsourcing it to other GPs, using Edinburgh community, hospitals and stuff to outsource people who are not getting the treatment they need. I even thought about potentially some kind of collaboration with local universities if they've got GPs and if they've got spaces available. Because I think that's a very stressful thing, not being able to get support when you need it from your local GP. And I think, moreover, talking a bit about kind of mental health, if I can link that in a bit, I think that's a massive issue the university is dealing with, and I think university is a very stressful time, and mental health is at an all-time high because of social media and everything. And I think that's something that we definitely need to increase funding on and increase efficiency of allocating resources, so kind of getting the best people for the job and making sure the money is not getting spent on stuff that's not effectively helping people, making people aware that there is help. But yeah.
Healthcare should be a basic human right that as students we should have access to. As people that move around, change addresses, it can be really difficult to register at a GP or a dentist practice. I've experienced this myself where I've had illness in Edinburgh, but I've been registered at my home practice in Cornwall, and I've had to go through all sorts of difficulty to try and get an appointment. So I'm really passionate about this. I think what we need to do is we need to work with local politicians and the Scottish Government to increase the provision of health services, especially for students in Edinburgh, and especially for international students or students that are, for health reasons, need access to those quicker. So I'd really like to have an opportunity to work with people like that, and then to work with the Students' Association and the university to really deliver sustainable and accessible healthcare to everyone, because it's incredibly important for anyone that they can access healthcare, and it's not fair that as students we're more likely to miss out on that. So there's a lot of work to be done there, but I really want to fight for better healthcare for everyone.